from Latin America, Simon Zalimben from Paraguay. Simon, it's such a great pleasure to have you.
Hi, Markus.
I know you have a busy schedule, and thank you very much for being with us. 2 years ago, I was visiting Simon, and we had great talks. Thank you so much. You showed me Asunción, and we started to work together. We have research to come about the intuition and the digital trust in Latin America. Today, he has another project for us that is one of his key projects right now. Simon, thank you very much for being with us. I know your schedule is busy, and the floor is yours. We're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you for being with us.
No, it's exactly the other way around. Thank you very much, you, Markus, to invite me. And let me show just a little thing that we are working on here. Okay, I'm going to talk about the analytic hierarchy process to identify priority objectives of Itaipu Binacional in the right bank. We got the right and the left bank. We are not talking about party and any political. It's just one is Brazil and the north is Paraguay. And in this case, is Paraguay. But let's see why we are talking about this. These are the largest power plant in the world, worldwide. So Itaipu is here in the border between Paraguay and Brazil. And it's the second largest dam worldwide. We are talking about production in gigawatts. But this information is according to the US Energy Information Administration. But let's see, if it is the second, which is the biggest one? Of course, we are talking about China again, and it's St. George. But let's see why it's really relevant to talk about this. Itaipu got 20 generating units, St. George got 32, which 6 are underground. The installed power are 40,000 megawatts. In St. George are 22,400 megawatts. But this is the thing that is really interesting. The production record is 98.6 million megawatts a year. And it surpassed that record on 2016, but it was recognized on 2017. And China, the record was 98.8 million megawatts. And you probably say, wait, you already talked about the installed power, that they have more generating unit. It doesn't make sense. The thing is that the Yangtze River, where the Three Lakes Dam is in China, the reservoir freeze. So if you got freezing water, you cannot produce as much energy as is possible. Here is more or less how is the principal dam here in Paraguay. We don't use in Paraguay fuel. We don't use, it's unfortunately, but solar energy. So we use the energy from the dams, from the river. And this is Itaipu, this is Yacyretá. Yacyretá is shared with Argentina, and Acaraí is a dam that the owner is the energy company. Why is it important? It's a clean energy, we got low costs, are safe, it's sustainable, and once it's built, the dam got lower relativity and operating and maintaining costs. Is it really relevant, Itaipu in Paraguay? Well, what do you know about Paraguay? Probably that we produce soja. Another thing that we are not discussing here, but is worldwide known by that. In some places it's legal, in other places no, and we're not discussing that. But the blue line is about cattle, that we are really well known about the Paraguayan meat also. And this is the participation in the total GDP. Obviously, you are probably going to see a huge number here, and you are saying, you are talking about a lot of money in Paraguay. Well, this is in local currency. So Paraguayan Guarani, and when Markus was here, see that you can have $20 and you got like 10,000 Guaranis, and it seems to be a lot of money. The orange line is the binational. Itaipu is responsible for between 80 and 85% of this orange line. And the green, well, I think you see gray line is agricultural activities. Itaipu is responsible for more or less 10% of the GDP. So it is really important here in Paraguay. And the Itaipu Dam is an entity that it was signed by a treaty with Brazil in 1973. And I'm going to pass really fast this part because I want to go to the research, but 87 of the export, and this is not about me, it's about the MIT. The MIT indicate that in 2016, Paraguay export like 2.9 billion in electrical energy, and 82% were to Brazil and 70 to Argentina. This is Itaipu, this is Jacinta. And it's the fourth country in the world that export the most electrical energy. So it is relevant. We are going to see on the research what are really the problems here. The problem statement, 2/3 of the production is exported to Brazil. It's electrical power source here in Paraguay and Brazil. It's a source of income in Paraguay. It's more than 10% of the GDP. And the governance of the Itaipu is established on Annex A of 1973 treaty. And I want to put it on focus because this is an entity. It's not a private company. It's not a public company. It got something that is called entity. And Annex C, we got in the treaty the Annex A, which is the governance. Annex B is about how it is built, how many units generating and things like that. And Annex C talk about economical and financial aspect. And next year, Paraguay and Brazil, they joint have to discuss that annex and probably review the condition on that annex. So we have to identify the main objectives on the entity decision making. The aim of this research is to identify the main entity. And we are going to see if it's a link between the strategic plan. Well, what is the purpose of the study? We want to calculate pool weights of the right man directors to identify the priority of a strategic objective and the interest contemplate to review a treaty after 2023. And you know what is really crazy, because you were talking about intuition and things like that in the previous presentation. And this is not totally the opposite. So we really want to know how they take the decision and how they manage that. We are talking about a huge entity. So the hypothesis here is the director of the right bank between the period 2013 and 18. They base most of their decision following the same order of the indicator established on the strategic plan. In other words, the most important macro area, and we're going to see right now the macro area, for them should be stakeholder, then it has to be internal process, and finally, they have to go to the learning and grow, which I don't want to spoil anyone, but it's not exactly that way that they take the decision. For the order of the objective, in this case, it must follow the same order. I'm going to talk briefly to the theoretical framework that we use in this research, and after that, we are going to the strategic plan. Well, first of all, we can talk about the behavioral economic. Olander and Thaler in 2010 already talking about this, which is a combination of psychological and economical that investigate what happened in the market, which the agent show limitation and complication. We don't know that we are not rational. We don't take the decision in the best way and with the best available information. So they take account of that. In 1995 is really, you can say it's old, but probably, but something that is really interesting is that Herbert Simon talking about approximate rationality. And what is approximate rationality? Indicate that an economic and also talk about an administrative man has limited knowledge and skill. And Herbert also criticized that most of the economic model that assume the economic agent are rational in their decision making, which is obviously we know that it's not always like that. 2008, Peter Diamond from the MIT is trying to understand the economic decision. There is not single standardized model. And he talked about how the people decide how to carry out economic transaction, talk about an equilibrium model, and also an economic, environmental, and political implication. And this is really interesting for this research. Obviously, we were based also on the entity documents like the treaty, each annex that are already told, the reverse note that are notes that each government have to pass to the Congress in order to put it in order and to use it, and the strategic plan. The first strategic plan was recognized as a strategic plan in 1995. It got a changes, but they always keep the same structure. 14 objectives and 3 macro areas that we are going to talk right now. Also, we were based on the PMI, that is say the strategic objective of an organization. The criteria to be used by the organization should be based on the values and preference of the decision making. And also something that we find really interesting is about Moreno Jimenez. In 2014, he talked about 3 schools of thought decision making, about normative, prescriptive, and constructive. And this research is based on Thomas Sati HIP model. Obviously, Thomas Sati already got another paper that are closer than for today and are other multi-criteria models, but this one is the one that fits for this research. And we're going to see in a minute why. Well, about the theoretical model, the HIP, as most of you probably know, got a psychological fundamental and also mathematical fundamental. The psychological fundamental that say that use a pair combination matrices where people, based on a verbal scale of value, assign preference of each of these elements compared in pairs. Let's talk about this. We are closing to the dinner on that part of the world. Here are close to the lunch time. If you got to choose between hamburger, pizza, and barbecue, probably you got your preference. But the thing that this model do is give you which is the preference and which are the weight of that preference. Also, the mathematical model, we talk about reciprocity, homogeneity, and consistency. We are not really going further than that, but this is how we transform it. We never ask the people to give me a value. I don't going to ask you about how much is hamburger than pizza or than barbecue rather than the other. So we ask the preference in a verbal way. So we ask about, is the hamburger equal important than the pizza and vice versa? And this gives us a scale. And this is the instance of importance, as we call from 1 to 9 is 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. And that is a definition. One is equal important, another is moderate important, another is essential important. One element is very strong importance than the other, or one is extremely important than the other element that we are comparing. So how we do this? We make a survey with a direct question to the board member of the right bank. There were 2 questions, closed question and open question. The closed question were for using for the HIP model, and the open question is how they see the entity after 2023. We are not talking about how they negotiate, if their negotiation is for Brazil, for Paraguay, more convenience. We don't talk about how they see the entity after that. The macro areas that we are going to see in right next slide are stakeholder, internal process, and learning and knowledge. There are 14 strategic objectives, and we use an answer using numeric to verbal scale for the transformation. Obviously, we got a matrix for each of these members of the board. We calculate the anger vectors, check the consistency ratio. If the consistency ratio, as the model say, is not accurate, we have to leave it away or ask again to the person in order to get a matrix that got the consistency ratio. And after with that, we make the aggregation in order to see the weight of each preference. So this is and it's pink in order to just don't forget the aim of this. Believe me, for 1 to 4, this is that the macro area that they call a stakeholder. From 5 to 10 is internal process, and from 11 to 14 is learning and growth. The hypothesis is say that the board member take the decision exactly in this order, and they should have more weight on this, and after that this. but we are going, is not exactly like that. And these are the 14 objectives that we are not going to discuss. But what we did is to see which is the macro area that in a public way, it got more impact from them on the decision making. And after that, we put focus on that macro area and see each of the objectives to see if they have a special preference. So we are going to do one sample. It is repeat for each member and how we did the aggregation. Suppose that Markus or I, we are a board member and we already asked, what about, or which is the most important macro area for you? And this sample, we asked Markus, and Markus said that the stakeholder, between a stakeholder, always is a matrix, so this is the same, but between external process and stakeholders, he gives a value of 5. Obviously, he doesn't give a value, he gives an answer based on the criteria we already said is equal important, more important, or extreme important. And we have here the matrix that is built based on that information. Remember that about reciprocity, if you got the stakeholder between internal process, so you already have also the answer that internal process and stakeholders. Then we check the consistency ratio, which each matrix got a consistency ratio, because Simon or Markus could answer anything just to say, Simon, go away, I don't want to answer you. And we check that consistency. In this case, we got 2 answers that were not consistent, so we have to re-ask to those members. In this case, it's okay. And these are the endgame vector, which are the weight for stakeholder, internal process, learning and growth. And what is really interesting about this, we not only know that stakeholder is the most important for that person taking a decision, so that also got a weight that is more than 7% when he is really taking a decision. And after that, we shared the same with the internal process and learning and growth. Remember, it's a board. Imagine this is a private company, which in this case is not. It's an entity with 2 governments, Paraguay and Brazil, which is a little bit more complex. It's not a public entity. And also we want to know how they take the decision or what is a priority for that board in that moment. So we did the same with each member of the board. Let me keep to the next. Sorry, oh, that was really fast. Believe me, I'm not going through all of this. We just want to show the weight for the second. It is equal the same way that they have each of the macro areas. For the third, also stakeholder is the most important, but it's not 70, it's like 60, but it's really high. And after that, we have again stakeholders, internal processes for this member is almost nothing. And for this is again, obviously. So we really see that the stakeholder is really important when they take the decision. So what it really mean when the Paraguayan member of the board take a decision that is really concerned about the entity, they take a look to the side and say, okay, what is going to think about this Brazil? And this is really important because decision, and this theory of game and things like that, decision should take concern about the general information. But after that, remember that we are going to see, considering this macro area, which of the objectives is really more important for you, which is to make it a little more complex, because about when we are talking about mathematics, this is combination and things like that. So this is the matrix for each member of the board, but we now have to make the aggregation. Believe me, these are the endgame vector that we say on the last column. So with the endgame vector, we determine the importance of each criteria. Obviously, we see that stakeholder generally is the one that pick up the more weight, but we have to combine that in order to have an aggregation. And this aggregation is done with the geometric mean of the horizontal line, in this case, a stakeholder. Remember that in this column, it must be each of any endgame vector of each member of the board. The sum of the aggregation column is established with the most equal to 1, to summarize here. and each row is divided on the total weight to have the final weight. This process is called normalization. And finally, we have the final weight of the Paraguayan right side or right bank about how they take the decision. And 64% of their decision were based on the stakeholder. So they are really concerned about what is going to think about this Brazil, or how could this affect to Brazil when we make this decision. Then my hypothesis was that they were really concerned about internal process, which is not true. Learning and grow is the most important aspect for this work from the Paraguayan side, of the right bank side. And then finally, the internal process. When we were after with the interview, we were really asked why really you think about this, and we are going to see that on the conclusion. So this is a lot of matrix, a lot of mathematics is probably at the end of the second day, so it's more easy to understand in this way. So we got the macro area, the most important is stakeholder, then learning and grow, and finally internal process. And remember that huge strategic plan that got 14 items and got micro areas. So we ask again, we put a focus on this stakeholder, and we ask about each objective on the stakeholder. And when we sum in on the stakeholder, we got like 4 key elements. One is security of energy production. The second one is economic and finance balance. The third is world leader in corporate sustainability, and then contribute to the sustainable development of the country. Again, to each of the board members, we ask, we got a matrix, this is the consistency ratio. As you could imagine, as much question you got, probably your consistency ratio is going down, but it's always in the range, so we can use that information. The logic is the same that we already explained with the previous. So we are going to the summary, which is the engine vector for each of the board member, and the final result are here in the last column without final weight. So security of energy production is the key element for this board member. And let's see again with no matrix in an easy way. It's like this. From the strategic plan, we already talked about stakeholder is the most important. And then we already see that the security production is the key issue. Then we go to the financial and economic balance. Finally, contribute to development of the country party, and then to be a world leader in corporate sustainability. When we ask about the open question, we talk about what are the key aspects for you. And they say the modification of the Itaipu Binacional company or concept to become a profitable and sustainable company. And it changed. This is really interesting. They changed and they use the word company based on the revision of the first article of the treaty. What did say the first article? The first article said that the entity is only responsible to generate energy. And this board see that we have to change that way to see the entity just to generate energy and being like a profitable, like a private company, and sustainable company. So it doesn't have to end in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. So we have to maintain through the years. The economic and final balance, again, technological innovation that could allow the company to continue being a very important factor for the development of the both countries. And Itaipu energy must be developed, must be a key factor for development in the country. Paraguay use like 20% of the Itaipu generates in energy. Remember, all of that is a support to Brazil. And now we are discussing about the price of that energy itself. We also seek the greatest possible technical and economic benefit from Paraguay, taking account in the principle of benefit for both parties. There is an historic event that Paraguay is part, like you got in the UA countries that are less developed than others, and you have to contribute in order. We are not to discuss about those political issues, but here we are talking something like that. Also about a balance between infrastructure and personal and optimal spacing. And what is really happening here? People are getting old, people are not getting specialized. So when we need to renew that, and also we have to renew the turbine, the engine, all the things like that. And the things they say they use that money, or they should use that money, not only for that, but also to renew and expand the possibility frontier of right now the dam. Conclusions. And we are really closing because I see that just in the time. Prevalence of the objective respond to the logic that first it must be to ensure the objective of production, which is the key element of the dam. If you do not produce energy, you cannot sell the energy. The sale of the binational entity must be ensured. And then analyze with the income from the sale of the entity, how they will manage that money to keep it sustainably. With this income, then the economic and financial balance of the entity must be solved. And with the result, if it's possible, that all through years was positive, to be able to contribute, but not only to contribute to the entities, they say to contribute to the development of both countries and therefore to Paraguay. A consequence collateral of this management will be an strategic objective 3 that make mention to the worldwide recognition of the World Company Corporate Sustainability. Something that you probably don't know, and you don't have to, is that Carter and Tremer, both presidents from Paraguay and Brazil, they make a joint communique. In this joint communique, they say that the strategic plan is part of the agenda of each country. So this is not that I say, oh, let's take a document that we are talking about the strategic plan because Simon wants to do it, something and try to show academically. So it's really on the agenda of both countries. And now we are discussing about a review that we have to have next year. Also, key issues for Itaipu after 2023, we don't know how that negotiation is going to be, but this board say that it must be a radical change in the concept of a company where the objective is not only and exclusively generation of energy. So let it be the exclusively energy generated company, but rather a company with corporate strategic objective and the benefit that is generated in both condominant parties, so 2 countries. Technological renovation again, employee training, and clear objective defined in a specific area of those results offer benefit on dominant to the party. Also, what is really always happen? When it's a lot of money, people are really concerned about corruption and what we are going to do with that money. So we have a clear strategic plan. We really know where the money has to go. Also, they talk about a corporate vision. They change as not as an entity and be as a company. Something that I want to pass really, really fast is this, and with this, I will really close the presentation. Aspect to consider after 2023, not only to renegotiate such part, which is the Annex C, but the opportunity should we take to a general review of the treaty, and especially the object of Itaipu. It's not only and exclusively generating energy, so that is consistent with the old document and the current context. Remember, that was built in the 60s and the context was totally different. Now we are talking about a strategic plan that at that time we really didn't have. And they talk about a technological and renovation alternative for both machinery and completion of the board such a navigation log, which is a thing that already was done in the pandemic. Training and replacement of technical staff, consistency with the spirit of Itaipu Treaty, Strategic Plan, Joint Declaration of 2017. Beyond ensuring its proper function, it must contribute as a company, not an entity, as a company from 2 countries to the development of each partner. And this is really, really strange because people from the board is a political designation for both countries, Brazil and Paraguay. But that way you probably might know that they can have another view. And this board, according to this data and according to this result, they change the way they see. They recognize there's an entity, it's not a company, but they say, wait, we already have a strategic plan, we already have a focus, and it's a key element here in Paraguay, not only for income, also for energy production. So we have to change the way what we really are managing and the way we are really focusing on this. People, it's a general known here, but people believe that it's an endless income source, which is obviously not true. And they are really concerned about that. And what is really important is they are really concerned about to expand the possibility, frontier of possibility right now from the dam. So I want to be on the time. So that's the last time, and I'm open for any question or anything that you could know.
Thank you so much, Simon from Paraguay. Excellent presentation, excellent research. We are very happy to have you here with us, and thank you so much for squeezing it into a busy time schedule. We will work together on digital trust in Latin America and also the intuition in Latin America, and I'm looking forward to that very, very much. Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you, Markus.